Well, hello and welcome to Frame.io Live. My name is Ryan, and today I am going to be taking you through Get to Know Frame.io version 4. Really thrilled for today's agenda. However, I would like to preface this just by saying I want to make sure that you can get what you want to get out of today's session. This is more of an introductory session where we're going to do a complete end-to-end overview of the settings and all of the components of Frame.io v4. But with that said, would love for you to find that comment section either now or throughout the session. Feel free to ask any questions if there's anything that you would like to get out of today. This is totally live. I want to make sure that this could be interactive and I can address any questions that you might have as you're getting your account kick started. I am an enterprise customer success manager here at Frame.io, so I will be highlighting a couple of enterprise specific features as we go along over the course of today's session. But even if you're on one of our pro or our team's plans, if you're not, I'll make sure that I highlight some of those features specifically. Like I said, please ask some questions as we go along. Today is also recorded, so if you signed up for today's session, you will be receiving a recording via email once we're through. But our agenda, what we're going to be going through today, we are going to do a complete end-to-end overview. So everything Frame.io. We're going to chat about account settings, how you can actually set up and optimize your account. We'll go through user roles. That's one of the more common questions that I get on a day-to-day basis is who exactly can do what? We'll talk a little bit about organizing your content, how you can create workspaces and projects. We'll also chat a little bit about getting content into Frame.io, how you can actually upload and download content. Of course, we'll go through commenting and annotating. We'll talk about metadata and collections, which are some of the newest features of Frame.io version 4. And then we'll wrap up talking about external sharing. I do want to drop in the chat now as we're getting started a guide that will direct you to our knowledge base. We have a rather robust knowledge base of information. There's a whole bunch of tabs. So if there's one specific concept that you want to learn a little bit more about, there's a whole bunch of videos embedded in there as well. A really great knowledge base, kind of like an e-learning hub for your reference. Okay. So hopping right in, maybe you're familiar with Frame, you're just brand new to V4. We just upgraded your account to this new version. Wherever you're at, there'll be something for you today. You're welcome to join me here. I'm just sharing my screen. You can follow along, but we are completely web-based. So I'm just here under app.frame.io. We do have a couple of external apps, one of which being the Frame.io transfer app, which I'll highlight in a bit. This is just an easier way to both upload and download content out of Frame.io. We also have an app that is for the iOS or iPad, so you certainly can access this on your mobile. And coming later this year will be an integration with After Effects and an Premiere Pro integration as well. Right? What you're looking at here is just my main screen. Over here on the left-hand side, I have a list of workspaces, and then within each workspace or projects, those are listed here on the right-hand side. Maybe yours is completely blank as we're getting started. But what I would like to kickstart with is talking a little bit about workspaces and this organizational structure that you could create. If you're an enterprise customer, you can create as many workspaces as you would like. Most commonly, I work with folks that are in the media and entertainment space, either agencies or brands. Of course, all of those use cases look a little bit different. So let's say you're an enterprise customer, you're creating your account for the first time. You could create a workspace that's based on the individual clients that you have, maybe even a specific episodic series. You could create a different workspace for that. Part of the benefit not only is organization, where then you could create projects within each workspace, but the secondary benefit is you can limit the amount of users that have access to those individual spaces. So you can see here I have two workspaces, marketing and Ryan's team. Let's say I have a group of individuals just working on Ryan's team. They would only see the projects that are associated. So you don't necessarily have to have users have access to every single workspace. But this structure really enables you to stay organized and also have a general snapshot of all of your projects in one place. Before we go further to talk a little bit more about projects and project structure, I do want to talk about users. So I currently am the account owner. You'll see when we get into the settings that I have full access across all workspaces, projects, and content. I also have the ability to adjust global settings associated with the account. So I can set some defaults, I can create watermark ID templates, etc. Next is the content admin. This user also has access across all workspaces, projects, and content, but the admin differs from the owner in that they don't actually make global changes to the account settings, rather just the users within the project. So they have the ability to access all of the assets within this space. They can also adjust who has access to what. And then lastly, there's members. So members have general access to account information with the ability to collaborate within either a workspace or a project that they're assigned to. Let me give you an example. So this marketing workspace here, I have some projects within it. Over here on the right-hand side, by clicking here, I can see a list of all of the users that are currently listed as members. I can then invite in additional users into the workspace, meaning they'll have access to every single project, and they could be any one of these number of member roles. Full access, edit and share, edit, comment only, or view only. All of these individuals do occupy a license within your account. The only user that doesn't is somebody who is actually reviewing content or a share link that you've sent out. So before you actually invite in a user, it is important to ask, do they actually need a license or are they just going to be viewing and reviewing content? I saw a couple other folks join in on the call today. Hello and welcome. This is Get to Know Frame.io version 4. My name is Ryan, taking you through some content today. We're just starting off talking a little bit about workspaces, projects, and organizing content. We're going to hop in to do a complete end-to-end overview. I mentioned earlier at the onset that this is a little bit more of an introductory session, but feel free to drop any questions in the chat as we go along today. Would love to make sure that I can address those and get to those as well. Okay, perfect. So those are our user and member roles. I am going to drop in the chat a support article that will actually take you right back over to that knowledge base that I dropped earlier. But this is a helpful reference that just lists out exactly what these users are and what they have permissions to do. Okay. We'll create a project, upload some content, and do a little mini review and approval stage together. But first, let's hop into the settings. I'm going to go down here into the bottom left-hand corner of my account where I'm able to actually access my account. I'm going to go into the settings here. If you have multiple accounts, so let's say that you're an account owner on one, but maybe you're a member on another, you can switch back and forth, leveraging this account switcher here. But let's hop into the settings for now and discuss a little bit about some of these settings that all of your users have, and then which ones either only account owners or account admins have the ability to edit. Starting with this personal section, all of your users will have the ability to add at least their name and their photo. Adding that could be advantageous in that when they leave a comment, you know exactly who's leaving a comment associated with some type of asset within your account. Your users also have the ability to adjust their passphrase or their email address. We also offer multi-factor authentication and SSO for our enterprise folks out there. So reach out to your account manager. We're happy to enable that for you. Every user also has the ability to adjust their notifications. We also find that emails, we get a lot of them these days, especially within Frame. If you received an email every single time an action occurred within your account, you would have thousands of emails sitting in your inbox. So we do offer an email notification frequency digest. So you can select how frequently do I actually want to receive emails from Frame.io with a complete summary of everything that occurred within my account. I have mine set to hourly now, meaning every hour I'll receive an email giving me that information. I can go down to 5 minutes. I can also do daily or alternatively never. I can get a little bit more granular with these notifications as well. Do I want to receive a notification anytime general comments? So somebody sees an asset, somebody replies to a comment within an asset, or app mentions me within my account. I can select if I want to receive these notifications either in the app, via email, or push notification for mobile. Same thing goes for assets. I can receive a notification anytime assets are uploaded, anytime status updates changed, or if there's content that's assigned to me. This refers to assets within the project. This should make a little bit more sense if you're brand new to Frame in just a bit once we actually go through and upload some content. This section back here, again, typically is for our account owners or our admins. Usage. We'll give you a general snapshot and a summary for some more admin related responsibilities. How many members are part of your account? How much storage are you occupying? How many projects and workspaces do you have? If you are on a Teams or retail, one of our pro plans, you can access your plan information here and can adjust your billing information. If you're an enterprise customer, that all goes through either an invoicing or a PO process. That looks a little bit different. These three tabs, users, workspaces, and projects. If you're actually managing an account, keeping your account organized, this is where you might spend a good amount of time. Users is just that. You get an overview of every single member that's a part of your account. By clicking on these users, you also can see what level of access they have. So you can see that my colleague Jacob has full access across all of these different projects and workspaces. I do have the ability to sort based on the last active date, so I can determine how how often are these users actually accessing the account, and do they need full access to the account? Hmm. Adding in new users is easy. I can do multiple at once. So if you're just now starting a brand new Frame.io account, you can follow along with me here to add in a couple of users. Let's add in Jane Smith and maybe John Doe as well. Okay. We can determine if we want to add these users in as content admins or members. Like I mentioned earlier, the content admin can add in additional users, so it depends on if you want them to have some administrative oversight. You can add a message just saying, "Welcome to my project," and I'm going to click Add. Adding these users will then send them an email where they can create their own Frame.io account, or they can just sign into an existing account and access your account space. You can see that these users are pending. They won't actually occupy a seat until they create their account login. Workspaces. I mentioned earlier, this is the highest level of organization on your account. Underneath this tab is where you also can create a new workspace. Let's say we're working on a summer campaign. We can create this new workspace here, and then it will show up on my home screen where I can add projects within. Like I mentioned, you can create as many workspaces as you would like if you're an enterprise customer, really being able to separate or parcel out the type of work that you're doing and the people that need access to that content that's being uploaded. By clicking on a specific workspace under this tab, you can see which members are a part of this space and which projects. The benefit here being that you could just click on these users or these projects and it will take you directly to that location within your workspace. Projects. You also can get an overview of your projects, the current status, whether they're active or inactive. I'll explain that in a moment. The last time it was updated, and the most frequently sorted option I would say is based on storage. You can determine exactly how much storage is being occupied within each project space. This means that you could then either offload content out of Frame or potentially delete that project if it's currently inactive. Branding. You can adjust the name and the logo associated with your account, but for shares, you can create default shares. This is an enterprise specific feature. This pertains to when you're actually sharing out content externally out of Frame.io. So let's say there's a stakeholder that you need to share content with that works at a specific brand. You could create a logo, a header image, and accent colors that all match that of the client that you're working with. So that way there's a little bit of consistency and some customization among the share links that you generate. I made this lime green. Pay attention to this because later in the session, about 20, 25 minutes from now, when we actually create a share link, we can determine if it's going to be green or not because I'm actually going to make this as a default. And content security. A lot of these settings pertain to our enterprise specific folks, but there are a couple of settings that apply across all account types. You can require a passphrase for all publicly shared links. So I create a share. I want to make sure that it's actually behind my own passphrase. I can do that. I can also create it to be default right now that is turned on. Let's shut that off for now. I also can create a default share expiration. So do I want my shares to only last for a week? I can set that as a default. I also have the option to enable whether I want users who access that content to download content that's a part of a share. Remember, a share link is different than actually having access to your account. And then it's typically people that are external to the org or anybody who's going to be doing a review and approval process who doesn't need to upload content. They just need to view the content that you're sharing with them. These users do have the ability to comment on assets. They can annotate and view any previous comments, but you can determine if you want them to be able to download content or not. That's defaulted to the entire account. For our enterprise customers out there, this setting for secure sharing, this just means that the user needs to access a Frame.io account before they can view the share that you've sent to them. So, as opposed to either a passphrase or an expiration, it'll just be behind their email as a confirmation. You additionally can set an authorized domain enablement. So, for example, at adobe.com, do I only want users who have that domain to access my content? That can be applied right here under the settings. I also can require a secure share link. So that way it's not fully public and it is a default. I also can make that a default setting here. Do I want it to either be secure or public? Enterprise folks can also create watermark ID. This could be applied to any internal assets or on any externally shared assets. Let's go ahead and create a new template together. Let's go ahead and call this one Summer 2025. We know that we're working on a project. I can add in my own custom text, so maybe a project name. I can change the opacity. I can rotate this text as well. I can also add some additional features, as you can see down here. The name of the user who's accessing, their email address, IP address, perhaps the date and time. I also can share any custom text as well. I can adjust the size ranging from small, medium, large to huge. I can move this around on my asset. I also can adjust the color if we want this one to be kind of a teal green color. I can add the text shadow, or I can also have this text scroll. This is all text-based watermarking. I can add a secondary watermark as well if desired. Creating a template here in the settings means that users can apply it at the time of external sharing. I'm just going to click up here in the top left corner to go back to my home screen. That will bump me back to this main page where I have a snapshot of my workspaces and the projects they're in. Any questions about settings? I'm going to move on, but feel free to drop any questions or comments that you have in that comment section now. You can see here that I can now adjust and I can view content either in list format, so I can see all of my projects that are broken out here, or I can see them in thumbnail format. So I can see a list again of all of my projects here in list format. That's just up here in the top. There is a filtered option where I can see all active projects or inactive projects. Let me give you an example. There's a couple of projects that exist here, my social media, my short edits. Let's say that I'm done working on this social media project. I can actually mark it as inactive, which will just hide it from my main screen here, meaning that I'm only seeing my active projects available at this time. I can filter it out and I can see my inactive projects. So you can see that I have a couple that are here. But I also could view all projects, including the ones that are inactive, which will notify me up here in the top right corner if it's no longer an active project. I can also move this back just by clicking set to active, and then it will enable me to see that listed there. Creating a new project is simple. I can just click this create new project option. There's a whole bunch of templates that exist here. You can see digital video production, location scouting, casting and auditions. If I was to click on one of these templates, you could see that there's an option for fields, collections, and folders. There's automatically some metadata fields and collections, which kind of function like smart folders that are built in here. I can also include sample content. If you're brand new to Frame, I would highly recommend that you include some of that sample content. That way you can just get a little bit of a taste for what an example could look like as you're going through a review and approval stage. Let's start with blank now, and let's go ahead and call this one casting photos. I can make a project restricted, meaning that I will have to directly invite people in before they could see it. And I can select which workspace I want it to be in. Let's go ahead and do summer campaign. I'm going to do create new project. Now I have a complete empty blank sandbox for me to upload content. So I could drag and drop content either from my desktop. I can leverage the Frame.io transfer app, which I'm showing you right here. So this will actually mirror everything that is within my account. I have the ability to upload and download directly from this transfer app. Just means that you could do it a little bit quicker. You can also set a watch folder for the Frame.io transfer app, meaning that content can auto upload into Frame.io or out of Frame.io based on whatever that watch folder is that you set. Alternatively, up here in the top right, there's a little plus button. I can click there and I can either upload assets or a folder and then select from where I want to upload that content from. So let's go ahead and upload this casting photos. I'm going to click upload. You can see that this is currently in progress. I want to draw your attention here to the left-hand side where I get a status of this upload. I can also click on this and it will take me directly to that location within the project where it occurs. So now I have a whole bunch of photos that I've just uploaded directly within my account. I know that I uploaded a JPEG here, or a whole bunch of JPEGs rather, or PNG files, but you can upload a number of different file types. You can do video files, audio files, you can do files across the Adobe suite. You can also upload Microsoft Word files like PowerPoint presentations, PDFs. Anytime you upload video assets, though, we do upload the original file, but we also create a lightweight and mobile-friendly proxy version of content, so you could play it back from anywhere you have access to Frame. I do want to go back now to my homepage. We just uploaded content into my casting photos project under my summer campaign workspace. But there's nobody who yet has access into this space. So over here on the right-hand side, I do have the ability to then invite users in. So this is where I can select either existing users or new users like John Joe and Jane Smith, who I just sent invites to. This is where I can determine, do I want them to have full access, edit and share, edit, comment only, or view only? Let's give them full access. But this will just give them access to this individual workspace. So by adding in users here, they will have access to every single project within the workspace. Okay. Alternatively, I could just give users access to this individual project. So let's say I have a freelancer that is external to the org who's working just on editing these casting photos. I could invite them in right here, just at the workspace level. They won't see any other projects associated with my workspace, or excuse me, at the project level. They won't have access to any other projects, just this one. And that's again right up here in the top right corner where I can click on this individual icon. Any questions about uploading content, creating projects, or adding users into projects? Please let me know. Mm. Let's go ahead and go into our short edits project. This is where I want to spend a little bit more time. You can see here on the left-hand side that I have my homepage, which we've used a couple of times. There's also the option to search for assets within my account. I can also see what notifications are associated here. Remember, we just adjusted all those in the settings. So do I want to get notifications when somebody comments on something or uploads something? I also can see a list of all my uploads here. I can also view all of the folders within my project space. I can see my collections, which kind of function like smart folders. I'll revisit this in a bit. But this is where I can actually tag assets and then add them into a collection automatically here on the left-hand side. And then shares. This is anytime I've created any type of share that's going out externally, I can see them all here. I can add content to them, but that is exclusively here at the project level. Okay. Up here in the top, there are a couple of different fields for how I actually view my content. Appearance. Do I want to view it in thumbnail or list format? I prefer thumbnail here. I can also adjust the card size ranging from small, medium to large. I also can adjust the aspect ratio. So if you have content that you know is going out for social or you want it to be viewed on a device, you can adjust that. Same thing goes for the thumbnail. I also can change the card info, what I want to see here. Fields. I'll revisit this in a bit, but these are metadata fields. So I can enable specific fields here, which will show up for these assets. Okay. I can also sort my content based on specific metadata fields. Right now I have it sorted based on name, but I can adjust based on date uploaded, status, duration, a whole bunch of other options. I do want to draw your attention to the top right corner, which is just another way for you to be able to organize and view your content. We call this the panel view. There's three separate panels. The first will remove that section that shows all folders and assets, collections, and shares. So do you want to see that associated with your homepage here? Yes or no? I also can view my asset a little bit larger. So I just broke out a panel here on this right-hand side just by clicking on this middle panel up here in the top. So I this asset that's now playing, but I also can select a different asset and it will show me that separate asset. I've seen this especially used if you're going through a lot of photos, maybe some PDFs, or you're just doing a quick edit. I can take this a step deeper though, where if I click on this third panel, I can then see all of the assets associated with my project, an individual asset a little bit larger, and all of the comments that are associated. So just saving you a little bit of clicks in order to be able to view content a little bit easier. Thad asked a question. Is there any level of adding a new user to a project that is not a paid seat? If you just want to add a client or freelancer to be able to view and comment, but not pay for a seat? Thad, right now, there is not. However, in this specific use case, I would say that you could actually send a share link to that individual. So that way they don't actually have to pay for a seat because they're not actually accessing the content within your account. So in this example, if you just need people to actually view your content and actually comment on it, I would just send them a share link. That actually won't occupy a license, but they'll still have visibility to only the content that you share with them. I'll get to that in a bit. Hopefully that answered your question to get started, though. Yeah. All right. So now we just went through that panel view. You also have the ability to move your content around or create new folders. So I'm going to do just a two-finger click. You can see here that I could create a new folder. I also can click this plus button and I can upload a new folder here as well. Thad, yeah, you got it. I can showcase that in a bit. Um, but I also can move content around. So let's say I want to multi-select these assets here, and I do a two-finger click. I can either copy, move, or duplicate. If I was to copy it, it will move it with the comments associated. If I moved it, it would just move the asset itself, no comments associated. Or duplicate will be just that. It will just create a secondary version of that asset. Then they will not actually function mirrored. It will be a parallel asset. So whatever happens to one will not happen to the other. So maybe you just uplifted your account to an enterprise account. You can move content around. You create a new workspace. You can move it into new projects, however you see fit. Let's hop into this footage folder here. You can see that I have a couple of different assets. Let's change the appearance. It looks like I changed the aspect ratio. Let's say I have a couple of like assets, like these two assets here. You see I'm just scrubbing, looking at them. All of this content, by the way, is for a campaign called Drip Ad. It's an energy drink campaign. So let's say that we have a whole bunch of content that we actually want to deploy out to a client, including some content that we want to share to social media. But let's take a peek at these edits. Let's say we're a little bit earlier in the process. I know that these two are very like or similar edits. Let's say we wanted to add it as part of a supercut, maybe with a voiceover over top. And I wanted to keep these together. I know that we are all guilty of having really long email threads that everyone's kind of confused what the final version of something actually is. Or maybe you have a document saved on your desktop that says final.final. This one's the final this time, I swear. We've created a really simple tool for you to be able to mitigate some of that confusion. You can drag and drop one asset over the next, and it's going to create what we call a version stack. So you can see that there's V2 here, indicating that there's two different versions of a like asset associated with this version stack. This is really helpful to help stay organized. I'm opening up this asset. You can see that I have some comments associated. But what I can do here by clicking on this V2 up at the top, I can, of course, create a share link. I can add it to an existing share. I can copy the asset URL, meaning that an individual will be able to go directly to this location in the project. I can download this content. Here's the original I was referring to. Of course, I can download the still, but this version section, I can now click back and forth between version 1 or 2. I can also compare these two versions side by side. I can also click play, and then I do have the option to see these two in parity right next to each other. I do have this purple line that shows right here. If I was to select this option or this option, it's actually going to play different audio depending on which one exists. So if I had a different song, different voiceover, I could click back and forth between those two. If I had more than one version in this version stack, I could select which option I wanted to see. You can create as many different stacks as you would like. I enjoy version stacking. You also can share out the entire version stack so a stakeholder can actually see every single version. LOS Inc. asked, I see that you have an option to flag something as final edit. Can you make custom flags for legal hold or not for error? Yes, of course. I'll get to that in a bit. That actually refers to our metadata tagging. There's a whole bunch that are out of the box, but LOS Inc. you can create your own custom metadata tags. I'll showcase that soon. Good call out. Different than these metadata tags that are associated to an individual asset would be the option to comment and annotate, which is something that Frame is known for. We are a review and approval collaboration tool, right? So let's go ahead and open up this edit here. Let's say that we want to use this same example of, we're working on this energy drink campaign. We know that we're going to use this in a final edit sometime in the future. We have this slow-mo shot here. We know that we want to use it, but let's go ahead and leave a couple of comments together so that way we can send them over to our editor to know exactly what they want to do prior to us adding it into the final edit. Watching this all the way through, I really enjoy the second half of this a little bit more where the camera pans. We get a whole bunch of nice light coming in from the left-hand side. Let's go ahead and leave some of those comments and discuss internally with our team exactly what we want to do and how we want to use this shot. You can see this comment section here on the right-hand side, this full player page. There's a couple different things you could do with it. There's obviously the option to play pause. You could loop, adjust the speed or the audio. You can change how you view your content, the time format in frame, standard, or time code. I can adjust the guide. So I wanted to see how it showed in social media. I can pop that up here. I also have the option to change the quality. So these were the proxy versions that I was mentioning earlier. Maybe you're on set or you're at the airport or whatever. You can drop it down to 360 or let's keep it at 1080 for now. There's a whole bunch of different types of comments that you could leave. Just a single comment so you can indicate one specific point in your timeline. You also can leave a range-based comment, so you can put brackets around a specific period of time. You can also at mention somebody. So if I was working on something specifically that I wanted you to see, I can at mention you if you're a part of my account. Then you'll receive a notification back to those settings that we talked about earlier. There's an annotation in the form of a hashtag. You can also annotate and just mark up the display. You can leave an anchored comment, and you also can upload a file to a comment. So a whole bunch of different types. We can leave a couple of these different comment types together, and I can showcase what they mean for you and your team. So let's click play. I'm just going to go over here to the bottom right corner and leave a comment. All right, very simple. I'm just saying I like this shot. I left this comment here. You can see that when I click on it, it takes me directly to this location in my timeline. My name and my photo are associated. This is why I was mentioning it earlier. Could be advantageous for your teams to add in a name or a photo. Okay. However, I know that when we watched this all the way through the first time, I really liked the second half of this shot a little bit more, beginning kind of right when this curve occurs. Like, I love it to start right here. Like, we could edit out this entire first portion. So let's leave what we call a range-based comment. I can use my keyboard shortcuts here. I'm going to put I and then O, indicating that this is the period of time that I'm referring to. I don't know if you could see these yellow lines, but I'm actually leaving this bracketed comment that can be dragged and dropped, indicating that this is the range of period that we want. I'm just going to say, can we edit this out? Shot to start at the endpoint. And let's say that I have an editor that I'm working with, Jacob. I can actually mention Jacob, and then they will receive an email notification or a notification in app that I've actually mentioned them as part of this comment. Those users, in order for them to receive notifications, do have to actually hold a member role or a seat. I really like this ray of light that's coming in too, especially here. This lens flare, I think, just looks really nice. It does look a bit washed out though, so maybe we need to adjust a little bit of color before. So I can leave a comment right over here, just indicating I like the rays of light, but can we increase the saturation? And let's do hashtag colorist, because I know that my colorist is going to be working on this particular. And let's leave an annotation. I just clicked on the paintbrush option. Looks like this. I can then leave an arrow, a line, a box, or draw freehand. But let's do a pink arrow just so we can indicate exactly where we're referring to. Like, the sky just looks a little gray and washed out over here. Okay. You can see that when I click on this comment, it's also going to reveal my annotation that is applied as well. So I leave just both a hashtag and I also leave an annotation as well. I do want to showcase this anchored comment feature that's just right down here in the bottom next to the settings. But this is where I can actually drop a pin indicating a specific location on an asset. And then I can leave a comment that's associated. I've especially seen this anchored comment feature used for PDFs or JPEGs. Of course, it also works um, for our video assets as well. Let's say that we want to drop a pin here and say, can we add an additional logo over here? Cool. And then you can see that this is an anchored comment that's associated with a very specific location on my timeline. And then the last type of comment that I could leave is a attachment of a file. So let's say I wanted to actually grab a script that I have in a PDF format that's on my desktop, and I want to attach it. And let's say that I want Luke to review this. I'm actually indicating to Luke, can you review the script and let me know what you think for voiceover? So let's make this one actually internal. I don't want anybody else to see it, just Luke. We don't want to release that quite yet. So this is now an internal comment with an app mention and an attachment. So we've just done a whole bunch in this comment section here. But what I really like with this comment section is that it's fully interactive. So let's say that Jacob is looking at this review process, can reply directly within a comment and say, this is done. They can also leave an emoji. Something else could be marked as completed. So you could use this comment section like a full checklist for your team. You also have the ability to filter based on annotations, attachments, completed, the person, any types of hashtags. Remember, I did add a hashtag for colorist, so I could filter out based on that hashtag. Maybe you have some internal language that you use for comments. I also have the option to copy these comments, so I could copy and paste them onto a different asset. I also can export them if there's a location that doesn't necessarily have a native integration, like for Resolve, for example. But I can also print these comments, which will actually pull up a separate PDF with a full audit trail of all of the comments that I've left and the annotations that are associated. Pretty cool. Additionally, I can see all the metadata fields that are associated with this asset. Some are default, like bitrate or duration. Any questions about comments or annotations, please let me know. I would like to highlight that this little blue icon means that only members with access can actually see that comment. So even if I share this out externally, nobody else would be able to see this unless they're actually signed in. Hmm. All right, LOS Inc. And Thad, let's talk a little bit about metadata and collections and, of course, some external sharing as well. I know that you could see all of these different metadata tags that are associated: video status, release platform, release date. This is a full workflow that our team built out. So underneath this field section, you can see that there's 37 that are currently clicked on. There's 32 that are out of the box, but you can create custom fields. So to your point earlier, LOS Inc., I can create my own type of custom field. So let's say that the defaults don't really quite fit the bill and I have my own specific field. I could use your example, not for air. So we can create a new field. I can create exactly how I want this metadata field to show up. So I want it to be a single text, multi-select, a rating applied to a person. Is there a toggle? Let's do a toggle for this one. And let's call it not for air. And we can adjust the color of this specific toggle. Let's make it blue. So then you can see that this metadata field that's clicked on will be revealed underneath my asset. So not for air, I can click these on now. Additionally, I can multi-select assets that are associated here in my project, and I can select not for air. So not only can I use these metadata fields as a way to indicate and track here within my project, I can search for it. I also can sort based on those metadata fields. But this collection section will really go hand in hand with these metadata fields that I add or create. Like I said, I know that there's a whole bunch of different fields here. I can go through a couple. Um, Final edit, release platform is custom that we created. There's also an option for duration, file size, seen by, a whole bunch of different options here. But then these collections are what will go hand in hand. Let me give you a particular example now. This video status, for example, needs revision. The release platform is Instagram. I can then go to this collection that is auto-generated or auto-created for field assets, final assets, which is sorted, it's grouped based on the release platform. So Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. But I would like to draw your attention to this filtered option here, where we are filtering this collection based on the metadata tags of final edit is checked yes. So it's then going to sort it based on the specific release platform. So final edit had been checked for all of these options. An additional example that I made last week was for legal approval. I created a metadata tag field. This is legal approval is yes, and the rating is 5 stars. So if you notice here, I added in multiple filters. I can add in a third, I can keep going. So this collection will then auto pull any asset that has those tags and will automatically adjust if I add them within my account. So let's use this legal approval example, because here there's a couple, but my filter is equals 5 stars. So if I was to go back over here and I was to add a 5-star rating and legal approval is yes on these two assets, you could see here that 2 additional assets just appeared because it's auto adjusting based on the metadata fields that I edited. Or let's create a new collection. Similar to how I can create some type of default share, I can also add exactly how I want folks to interact with this. So not for air. I can also add in my own header. I just went up here to the top right. Sorry, I was going a little quick. I can go up here to the top right corner and I can click header. There's an option then to select to adjust the image. So I can upload my own image or I could select one of these options here. These ocean waves are nice. Let's make it a little bit larger though. We can make the header large, not for air. I can determine this source folder here. Again, I'm creating a new collection. Do I want this collection to pull from every single asset on my account or just a specific folder? Let's have it pull from all. My filters. We want to do the not for air option. Not for air is checked. And I want to get rid of this grouping. But now it's going to show me every single asset that is checked not for air. And remember, I added in this header, I added in a description. And if we go back over here to our assets, let's even add in these graphics here. Not for air, not for air, not for air. You could see here that that content is going to auto upload. Part of the benefit of this collection is that I can share it out. So I know that we discussed a little bit about some of this external sharing component. I can select just an individual asset to share out with somebody. I could create an entire collection though to share out with somebody. I've especially seen this utilized if there's a collection that's created for an individual user, maybe a group of external stakeholders that you know are going to be viewing this content every single time, like producers or directors. But I could easily generate a link based on this collection that will then continue to update as I update those assets. So let's go ahead and share this out for external review. Anytime I generate something that will go external, so that's anybody outside of my account, not a member, anybody who's going to be viewing this content, I can adjust all of these settings. Link visibility, I could even generate a link, but just have it be off so I could turn it on at a later date. If you recall, back in the settings, I did make secure sharing my default. If anybody remembers, that just means that a user needs to be signed into a Frame.io account before they can actually view this content, meaning that the only users that could see it is the one whose email I've shared it with. Thad, that's a great question. In a collection, I assume that it's only specific to a workspace. Can you create a collection that pulls from multiple workspaces? That is an update that's coming later in the future. Right now, it is just project specific. So the collection will only pull from that individual project, but in the future, it will be workspace specific. And I need to check them with our teams, but I believe it will be account specific coming in the future. Good question. Let's make this link public though, and then I can send it via email. But before we do so, I want to choose the layout of how people actually interact and view this content. Do I want it in grid, list, or reel format? You remember I made this bright green as our real brand default. As promised, we're right back here again with this bright green default for real. The difference between these grid is kind of how we were viewing it earlier. List is a full list, and then reel will either auto scroll. Just looks a little bit more professional, especially if you want something to look more like a presentation. You can enable a passphrase, an expiration date, and apply an external watermark. You also have the option here under this permission section to determine how you want these users, not users, reviewers rather, to interact with this share link. Do you want them to have the ability to comment, download, or show all versions? Remember, we created that version stack earlier. I can reveal all versions within the stack or just the most recent version. Totally up to you. And one last option that you can adjust is just one of these metadata fields that those users can adjust. So let's go ahead and copy this link. Let's put it into our Finder here. And this is exactly what this link looks like. Wow, this is kind of an ugly share link. But you get the idea that you could see this is all in real format. Let's make it a little bit prettier. Okay, so let's go ahead and change this back to grid. I want to adjust this collection here. Let's change this look. I'm doing a little refresh. All right, that looks a little bit nicer. Okay, and now here is a better version of our not for air share link. You saw how easy it was for me to go back and edit and adjust this link to really make sure that it looks exactly how I wanted it to look. I also did enable the option to download content. Yeah. And if you recall as well, I did leave a comment where I did want Luke to be able to see the script. That is not actually added into this link. Yeah, Thad, you can set it to autoplay as long as you set it as a default. Oh, oh, I can add that share. I thought it was asking a real share. Can you have it autoplay? It will autoplay automatically. Oh. I know that I mentioned this share section, but this all shares section right here is where you can get a list of all of the shares that you've previously generated. So not for error, legal approval, etc. Not only can you create a share based on a collection, but you could create it just based on an individual asset. So I could create a share link or add it to an existing link here. I also can create a share link just by clicking this plus button here. And it's just based on nothing. So I could even just drag and drop content into that share link. And then, of course, at a later date, could go back in and I could adjust the header and the description and all of this other visibility content that we went through earlier. So totally up to you how you want to be able to generate those shares, but of course you can view it here. All right, we've covered a lot of ground over the past 48 minutes or so. We did a complete end-to-end overview. We talked about settings, user roles, workspaces, and projects, uploading and moving content, commenting and annotating, metadata and collections, and of course, external sharing. A couple additional settings, features that I want to draw your attention to. Camera to cloud connections is a feature that's available for every single account type. By clicking here, you can actually add in any hardware. By clicking learn more, you can see any devices that are uh, able to be synced up with Frame. It's actually really cool technology where the second you call cut, content will auto upload in proxy version into Frame. So you can begin editing immediately. You could even have editors that are off site. Maybe you have somewhere where your team's on set that you just want to make sure that the location's appropriate. You could really use Camera Cloud for a lot of different things. But this is where you're able to connect those settings. There's also a beta for Adobe Lightroom, which is really exciting. Down here in the bottom as well, there's a couple of tabs, one of which is to reach our support team. They're available 24/7. These are actually some live folks that are chatting right now. If you run into any questions, issues, etc., this is a great line of defense to get started. The team has a wealth of knowledge. Okay. There's also an option here if you want to leave some feedback or submit a feature request. We'd love to hear from you. Our team takes these seriously. We review them every day. So if you are working in the platform, you're like, wow, I really wish that this feature exists, let us know. I know that I used a couple of keyboard shortcuts, most notably to leave a range-based comment today by hitting the I and the O keyboard, but there's a whole bunch of keyboard shortcuts that exist. There's a little key down here in the bottom for your reference. Any other questions, please let me know. I know that earlier I did drop in the chat a support article. This gets you to our knowledge base. I highly recommend that you check that out, tab it, save it for a later date. But of course, our teams are here to support. I do lead this session every week, so I'll be right back here again next week. Happy to answer any questions that you have. Feel free to share this. If you're watching this as pre-recorded content, thanks for joining me today. For those that joined live as well, Thad and LOS Inc., thanks for your participation. I really hope that this was a helpful session to get things kickstarted with Frame.io version 4. Really grateful that you joined me today. I'm not seeing any other questions come through. Oh, here's one more from Thad. Asking a difference between V3 and V4. Last one. In V3, there used to be a way to custom order videos for client share to view in a share, not just by name, date, etc., but a specific order that I desire. Does this still exist in V4? Like where um the order of the assets? I'm not sure I'm understanding the question. I'm sorry. There used to be a way to custom order videos for client share to view in a share. order of videos in a share? Mm, I'm not sure that there's a direct parity between like current share links and default views. You can sort based on all of these different metadata fields, but I don't think there's a way to actually default which ones appear first. I'm sorry if I didn't fully get to your question. I would send over our support team a chat. They could do a little bit more troubleshooting with you or could reach out to our teams as well. Hmm, awesome. Um, with that, I'm sorry that I couldn't get to that last question. Like I said, I'd recommend reaching out to our support team. But I'm not seeing any others come through. So thank you for joining me again today. I hope that this was helpful. We will chat soon again. Like I said, I'll be right back here again next week. Thanks again for letting us be a part of your creative process. See you next time. Take care.